Evolutionists proclaim in many ways and in various formats that evolution proposition is settled science. To suggest that there was an intelligent designer, or reason, or purpose to all that we see around us will often bring loads of ridicule, shaming, and scorn by those who are determined to prop up a theory that is nothing more than pseudoscience mixed with superstition, magical considerations, and a little bit of truth along the way. Let me demonstrate. The biggest categories of solid 100% proof of evolution as being settled science, according to the evolutionists, are as follows. Number one, the factual and scientific observation of evolution from species to species. Number two, the understanding of abiogenesis and chemosynthesis, explaining the origins of life and then the subsequent evolution process that progenerates life and continues to generate new species. And then number three, the fossil evidence, as indicated in the millions of transitional fossils which we now possess. These sound pretty convincing, but let's take a closer look. Number one, the observed evolution from species to species. Well, of course, this depends upon how one chooses to define species, and there are many definitions of species within the scientific community. A quick Google search verifies the truthfulness of that statement. But the fact is that, yes, there are variations within viruses and bacteria, birds, plants, dogs, and horses. Variations brought about by breeding or genetic manipulations, perhaps environmental factors, etc. But what the evolutionists hate for you to point out is that viruses are always viruses, regardless of the change within the species. Bacteria is always bacteria. Birds are always birds. Plants are always plants. Dogs are always dogs. And horses are always horses. You get the point. We have no evidence of a single cell becoming a multicell that became a sponge, that became a worm, that became a fish, that became an amphibian, that became a reptile, that became a mammal, that became a primate, that became a man, as the evolution origin scenario requires and insists as truth. By the way, that outlay is in every single evolution origins textbook. Fairy tales, magic, superstition, perhaps, but not settled scientific fact, and not one shred of evidence to indicate that that particular scenario ever happened. Secondly, abiogenesis and chemosynthesis, those are just fancier words for life coming from non-life, randomly and accidentally, without any intelligent input. The bottom line to that tidbit of pseudoscience is that it is unscientific and proven to be so. We have never observed life coming from non-life accidentally, randomly, without intelligent input. In fact, we have never even been able to manipulate chemicals to make it happen. Never, not even once. How convenient for the magical evolution theory that it supposedly did happen once, billions of years ago, never to be repeated, never again to be observed, and then helped along through the billions of supposed years by the pseudoscientific suggestion of evolution from one kind of life into another completely different kind of life. And then number three, the fossil evidence of transitional fossils? Really? And where are these fossils showing a reptile becoming a mammal, for example? Well, there are none. Not one. What the evolutionist will do is line up all the fossils they have on a table and say, can't you see it? Look how this amphibian looks so similar to this reptile, which has similarities with this mammal, and so on. From there, they conjecture that one must have come from the other because they look so similar. Really? Perhaps a 3-year-old could be fooled with that shell game, but not real science and thinking people. So there you have it, the big three of evolution proofs, annihilated by truth, real science, and plain old-fashioned reason. These so-called evolution proofs are the foundational proofs of evolution origins proposition. If the foundation is flawed this disastrously, how much more the rest of the fairy tale must be flawed. Do you ever wish that you could more powerfully, succinctly, and accurately speak to the message of your Christian faith and the Word of God? This is the book you need, The Magic Man in the Sky, Effectively Defending the Christian Faith. This book has been featured on TBN, Atlanta Live, dozens of radio programs, and hundreds of markets. It was rave reviewed by the Washington Times, and it was called a must-read book. Considering the times in which we now live, you need this book. Get it today on Amazon.com or the WND Superstore.